Hello everyone and welcome to another video. The world is a weird and wonderful place made up of 7 unique continents. So we thought, why not name the best cyclists from each of the 7 continents? And of course, this will be based on the riders' recent performances independent of the rider type. So in no particular order, our first continent is the continent with the most people, with over 4.5 billion. And this, of course, is Asia. In recent time, we have had a huge increase in Asian teams on the World Tour, particularly from the Middle Eastern region, including the UAE Team Emirates and Bahrain Victorious. Astana, of course, have been a World Tour team for a lot longer time, actually stretching back to 2007, and they originate from Kazakhstan. But in terms of the best rider of the continent, there are several that are now riding in the World Tour, such as Yukiya Arashiro, who has been on the top level of the sport for many years, and even his countryman Fumiyuki Beppu for EF Education. The current Asian champion on the road from the latest Asian Games is also the rider I'm going to pick. That is, of course, Kazakhstan's Alexei Lozenko, who finished in front of Beppu. The next continent on our list is one of the most improving ones in terms of cycling, and that is the 54 nation continent of Africa. And with the possibility of the World Championships in Rwanda in 2025, this is a very exciting time for African cycling. Eritrea have seen an incredible rise in their professional riders on the World Tour in recent years, and they also have a strong fan following for the riders. Merawi Kudus, Natalian Berhan and Emmanuel Gebrselassie are their 3 World Tour pros and a success story of a nation of only 3.2 million people. South Africa is another strong nation, and they had the incredible story of MTN Quebecer, and it's hard not to give the title of the best rider of the continent to Daryl Impey, who has been so visible for Africa in the Tour de France, or perhaps Ryan Gibbons, who actually won the African road race in 2021 along with the time trial, and he was a part of the South African national team who won the team time trial, and that all of course happened in Cairo. Louis Meintjes of South Africa as well is also a strong rider who's finished in the top 10 of the Tour de France before. But based on the current performances, I will have to give it to Israel Start of Nations Daryl Impey, as he's still able to mix it with the best riders in the world at an age of 36 years old. The next continent on our list is Europe, and this for many people is seen as the heartland of cycling, with generations of history and also most of the World Tour calendar centralized around the continent. This continent is of course very hard to make a selection for, as there's no right answer. Mathieu van der Poel has recently become a superstar on the road, along with his legendary status in cyclocross. Slovenia have been dominating stage racing with Tadej Pogačar and Primož Roglič. Belgium have seen a generational change with Wout van Aert and Remco Evenepoel taking over from the likes of Philippe Gilbert and Tom Boonen. Plus, France have had their first world champion in a while with Julian Philippe, plus a very strong generation of climbers, while Denmark seem to be winning almost anything we touch at the moment. So this choice is very hard, and of course this will never be the right one for many of you, but I will have to go with Primož Roglič. And wait, before you crucify me, my reasoning here is that he's been one of the most consistent riders in not only 1-week stage races, but also Grand Tours in the last 3 seasons, and only have had a few mishaps along the way, particularly in the French ones. But of course, Tadej Pogačar is a phenomenally strong rider as well, and he will of course be a champion for many years to come. But of course, it could equally be Mathieu van der Poel, and I'm sure a lot of you will say that in the comments. Now we move on to the Americas, and why not start with South America? South America have seen the sport of cycling grow enormously in the last decade, with a lot of riders on the World Tour and even more stage races as well on the continent. And of course, Colombian superstars like Luis Herrera and Santiago Botera were part of this revolution, but it was also the likes of Nairo Quintana who won the Tour de l'Avenir to kick off with, and then podiumed the Tour de France on several occasions, along with winning the Giro d'Italia and the Vuelta a España. Rigoberto Urán is also another rider who's part of this next level growth for Colombia with the sport. But equally, Ecuador has been one of the most improving nations in the last couple of years, really turning into a strong cycling nation, and currently they have 3 World Tour pros on the top level, and Richard Carapaz, of course, the nation's first ever Grand Tour winner in 2019 at the Giro d'Italia, and in the 2020 Giro d'Italia, Navarez and Caicedo both clinched wins in the Giro d'Italia as well. But the Pan-American champion right now is from Argentina, and that is Maximilian Riquezi of UAE Team Emirates, and this was held in 2019. I have made a video of each of the best riders in the South American countries, so make sure to check that out. And it's a great shame that there is no World Tour race in South America, making it a mockery of the name World Tour. And I really think they should make the Tour of Colombia a World Tour race. But anyways, in terms of the best rider, in yesteryear it would of course have been Nairo Quintana, but the Colombian has declined in recent years, as has Uran, and along with Chavez, who has sort of had a bit of a revival in this season. So for that reason, it comes down to either Miguel Angel Lopez, who's been very consistent in the Grand Tours in recent years, or Richard Carapaz. And I think Richard Carapaz is the strongest rider at this moment in time. And when he was given the opportunity, he showed in the Vuelta a España that he could actually nearly match Primož Roglič. But Miguel Angel Lopez is not to be underestimated and remains to be seen whether his move to Movistar will be a fruitful one. So of course we went to South America, so naturally we go to North America. The continent of North America roams 24.71 million square kilometers, and it is compiled of 23 nations. And of course the continent has a mixed history, with the sport having Grand Tour winners such as Greg LeMond, Andy Hampstead and Ryder Heysedahl, but of course also the disgraced rider of Lance Armstrong still haunts the sport in North America. It has been a sad time in the region with the collapse of the biggest race on the continent, the Tour of California, and many of the stage races as well. However, the World Tour is still made up of plenty of American teams and a lot of the riders from the continent as well. Young riders such as Quinn Simmons and Brandon McNulty have shown real promise this year and marks a changing of the guard from the riders such as TJ Van Garderen. But in terms of the best rider for the continent right now, it's between Sepp Kuss, the phenomenal climbing domestique for Primož Roglič, or Mike Woods, who has been very strong in many of the punchy finishes, even taking a 3rd place finish at the 2018 Innsbruck World Championships, which in turn was actually the first medal for the continent since Lance Armstrong win in 1993, and also the first Canadian medal at the World Championships since Steve Bauer in 1984. So for that reason, and his podium in the 2018 Liège-Bastogne-Liège, along with winning the Milano-Torino Classic, I will have to go with Mike Woods, who looks very strong indeed. But if Sepp Kuss starts riding for his own chances and not in the shadow of Primož Roglič, he could very much be the champion of the continent one day. The next continent on our list is the continent of Oceania, which is compiled of 15 nations, but of course when it comes to cycling, it has been a very dominant continent, largely by the Australian and the New Zealand riders. Australia also has the only oceanic World Tour team, Bike Exchange, at this moment, and has been a pathway for many New Zealand riders as well to reach the pro ranks. The current champion of the continent in the road race is Benjamin Dybul of Australia in 2019, who is also riding for the team UKYO after a season with NTT Pro Cycling. But in terms of the best rider on the continent, it will have to go to Richie Porte, who finally penetrated the Tour de France podium last year, but a close second would definitely be Caleb Ewan, who's considered one of the fastest men on the planet. And the pair have also been very dominant in the continent's only World Tour race, which is of course the Tour Down Under, for many years. So of course, for the final continent of our list, which is Antarctica, that stretches 14.2 million square kilometers, there is of course no native people there, but Maria Leierstam was the first person in the world to cycle to the South Pole from the edge of the Antarctic continent. She smashed the challenge in 2013, cycling for 10 days, 14 hours and 56 minutes to set the current world record for the fastest human-powered coast-to-pole transverse. So I guess that makes her the champion of Antarctica for cycling. That's it for this video. Of course, I can't make everyone happy, so make sure to drop a comment down below of which riders you think I should have picked for each of the continents. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching and have a nice day.
be my night sky.